Welcome to today's session on hybrid working with Sage 300 and Orchid with our special guest speaker, Robert Lavery. If you have any questions, please enter them into the question box as you are all currently on mute. At the end of the presentation, we have put aside some time to answer any questions you may have. Robert's organization, RLA, has represented Orchid in North America for many years and recently staged a virtual conference called Rejuvenate 2022 for North American Sage 300 business partners and end users. The conference featured a number of developers represented by RLA. We will be showcasing Robert's presentation on hybrid working and will then run through some Orchid modules which have proved to be effective in facilitating hybrid working, including Notes, Document Management Link, Extender, Remote Action Service, Workflow Anywhere, Process Scheduler, Report Runner, and EFT Processing. For those of you who didn't attend Rejuvenate 2022, this will give you a feel for the virtual environment we were all in.
And good day, everyone. Thanks again for joining us at Rejuvenate 2022. We want to thank you for taking the time to be with us because we've all had an opportunity, hopefully, to enjoy the metaverse, to walk around the pathway of products, visit with exhibitors, chat with other attendees. And it's been a long time since many of us have had the opportunity to see each other in person, at least virtually today.
We found this virtual metaverse was almost as good as a face-to-face physical conference. For those of you in North America, be sure not to miss the next Rejuvenate conference. For those of you outside North America, please let us know if you would be interested in attending something similar focusing on third-party add-ons for Sage. By way of introduction, RLA and Robert Lavery have distributed Orchid's products in North America for close on 20 years. Robert has a background in public accounting with KPMG and BDO and has held senior positions at ACPAC International and Computer Associates for over 12 years in the period before ACPAC was acquired by Sage and renamed Sage 300. Robert's last position at ACPAC was Vice President of Strategic and E-Business Alliances.
Let's take a look at the hybrid work models that organizations have also been adapting throughout the pandemic and even before. Now, when we talk about a hybrid workplace, we're referring to a flexible workplace practice that empowers employees to work where and when they want, usually by balancing their time between office work and remote work. What's interesting is that earlier this year, almost a third of survey respondents, 29%, said they would quit their job if they weren't allowed to work remotely. And half the people said they wouldn't return to jobs that don't offer remote work. Some candidates have even refused job offers if remote work isn't an option. I was speaking with a manager a couple of months ago about a candidate they had interviewed and were willing to hire. And while the position was primarily remote, they asked this candidate if they wouldn't mind coming into the office 1 or 2 days a month for face-to-face meetings. And the candidate flatly refused and said no. And they refused the job offer when it was issued to them. So you can imagine the shock and surprise of that manager. They had found a very good candidate. They liked her. The candidate liked the organization. But because she had to come into the office just once or twice a month, she refused the job offer. Now, when we talk about hybrid work models, the other typical benefits include lower real estate costs because people share office space. Employee satisfaction and well-being increases because there's no lost time commuting back and forth to the office. This can increase productivity and employee retention and probably help you attract better candidates. Sometimes this requires software tools to manage the office space and support remote work. But just because you need new software tools doesn't mean that you have to spend money on those software tools, because many of you will have what it takes to enable remote work in the environments that you're already running in your organizations. As an example, the Microsoft Windows environment running on Exchange Server or Office 365 if you're in the cloud. There are tools like Remote Desktop that allow remote workers to access information and applications on your servers in the office when they're working from home. You just need to implement it. In some cases, you might need to add hoteling software, as they call it, so that you can create a calendar where you allocate office space between employees so that when they come to the office, they know they have a desk reserved for the time that they're there. Hybrid workplaces also require tighter data governance, compliance with privacy and security regulations like PIPEDA, the Privacy Act, and strict employee access guidelines. So these are things that you might need to review as part of the process of moving towards hybrid work models. But these are just good practices in general for all organizations to make sure that they're maintaining the privacy and security of the information in their systems and making sure that employees are accessing the system in appropriate ways. Other options, such as implementing two-factor authentication or complex passwords. Some organizations are deploying employee profiling to do more due diligence on their employees, better background checks to make sure that these are people that are trustworthy and able to work remotely without much supervision. And also software licensing management so that you make sure that you have the appropriate applications that are properly licensed and being utilized effectively in the organization. But all of these things don't necessarily require new software. As I've mentioned, the Microsoft Stack, as it's referred to, has many tools available that you already have running in your systems. You're just not aware of them or you're not utilizing them. Now, when we talk about the hybrid work model, we're essentially dealing with two parameters, time and place. And this is a graph that I took from an article from the Harvard Business Review, the May-June 2021 edition, on how to do hybrid systems or work models right. And what you start off with in the bottom left quadrant is the traditional office where you're constrained by both time and place, working in a physical office in a defined time of 9 to 5. Now, I remember in the 80s when I started working myself, that often people would say the work that you do that's most important is not what you accomplish between 9 to 5, but what you accomplish from 5 to 9. And that was the idea that I would stay in the office, but I would work longer hours. And that's as you move to the right, the bottom right-hand quadrant, in the office anytime, where our time is unconstrained. But this obviously wasn't a healthy model for ongoing social relationships because you spent a lot of time in the office and you heard the lament of significant others that their partner was spending significant time in the office. They were married to their office and not them. And in other cases, we had people who were remote traveling employees that unconstrained by place, but still limited to a 9 to 5 work time, where they could access information or be working on their notebook computers on an airplane, let's say working on a PowerPoint presentation or drafting a Word document, but they weren't connected to the systems back in the office. So while they weren't constrained by place, they were constrained by time, and typically that was business hours, 9 to 5. as we've morphed into the 21st century and been dealing with the pandemic, both time and place have been unconstrained as the technology has improved to be able to support mobile workers. We've got new mobile applications. We've got better connectivity through the internet. People are able to work anytime and anywhere. And of course, this has both good and negative consequences. One of the expressions people used a few years ago was that, the good news is my office is in the home. And the bad news is my office is in the home, because they found themselves working long hours because they had a home office and it was readily available. So this does speak to having proper discipline and healthy work habits that allow us to separate our personal lives from our professional lives. But the fact is that these hybrid work models have been developing slowly over the last 30 years. The key criteria, though, in designing these hybrid work arrangements are maintaining our interest in the individual human concerns, not just institutional ones. We need to consider the jobs that are appropriate for hybrid work models and the tasks people are trying to accomplish and whether they fit into a hybrid work model or not. If we take a look at healthcare as an example, if you're a nurse practitioner serving clients, patients in the hospital, obviously you can't work from home. You've got to be at the hospital to serve the patient's needs. But if you're a specialist, a doctor, we've heard of examples where even surgeons can conduct surgery remotely through a monitor that's connected to the surgical room, and they can be guiding or advising the other surgeons in the room on the appropriate procedures or techniques to use to accomplish a successful surgery. So in that case, they don't have to be physically present, but they're still able to do the work or provide their expertise. And there's other things like employee preferences, the projects and workflows that are involved in certain types of work, and making sure that we have a collaborative process that includes the input of other workers so that we're fair to everyone as we deploy these new hybrid work models. But remember, as we talked about in the first session, hanging on and letting go, these are adaptive challenges that we have to work through by maintaining empathy and being open to learning and listening as we go through the process. Because in some cases, we haven't done this before. And even governmental organizations who never would have considered a hybrid work model prior to the pandemic are now considering ways to allow people access to sensitive government information through a remote connection so that they can do work at home. Now, how do we manage this hybrid work model and the transition to it? How can you propel your firm toward an anywhere, anytime model? Well, as we touched on the key jobs and tasks, we need to determine what are the drivers of productivity and performance for each job or each task that needs to get accomplished in your organization. And then think about the arrangements that would serve them best. How can we accommodate the requirement to work remotely and at the same time ensure that the work is getting done efficiently and effectively? And one of the best ways to do that is to engage employees in the process, using a combination of surveys and interviews to understand what they really want and need out of the job, but also from an organizational standpoint, the objectives that you have and the outcomes that you need in order to be successful. And this is going to differ significantly from company to company, so you can't take shortcuts. You need to involve everyone in the process and make sure that everyone's needs are being catered to. But this also gives you the opportunity to think expansively and creatively with an eye toward eliminating duplication and unproductive elements in your current work arrangements. This is an opportunity to take a clean sheet of paper and redesign some of the jobs and tasks that are getting done in your organization to make sure that the work that's being done is being done appropriately, or whether you even need to do a certain process at all. Make sure that you're communicating broadly so that everybody understands how hybrid arrangements will enhance rather than deplete their productivity. And certainly, eliminating duplication and unproductive elements will not only help people become more productive, but more satisfied in the work that they do because they know they're contributing something of value to the organization. And as an organization, you're going to benefit because you have more motivated workers, but they're also accomplishing things of greater value to your organization, which typically translates into better customer service and higher performance scores. But you also have to train leaders in the management of these hybrid teams because now they're working in a different environment where they have to account for the fact that not everyone is face-to-face in the same room, and investing in the tools of coordination and collaboration that help make your teams align their schedules. And it's no wonder that Microsoft came out with Teams as a collaboration tool to integrate email correspondence, document management, and online meeting capability so that workers, whether they're in the office or remote, can still collaborate with their peers, share information, and work collectively towards the outcomes that your organization needs. Now, what's our experience been with hybrid work at RLA? Well, most of our work is done remotely. We are a truly virtual organization and have been since the day we started over 20 years ago. We initially were just selling and marketing software products, but over time, business partners asked us to add a consulting implementation service as well. And as we started bringing consultants on, we thought it might be a good idea to get some physical office space. And as we considered that and we started talking to the consulting team, what we found was that none of the consultants wanted to drive to an office. They preferred to work from home. In fact, they told us that that was a way for them to be more productive. They had fewer interruptions, but it also achieved a better work-life balance for them and their families, and it saved them time and money, particularly on transportation and clothing, because when you're not coming to the office, you don't feel the need to put on that fancy new suit or that pair of slacks or skirt. And so they were not only happier, but they felt that they were being accommodated based on their specific requirements. And of course, consulting is the type of work that lends itself well to remote work models because we're paying our consultants for their expertise and delivery of service. That's what clients ask for. They, in some cases, don't really mind where the consultant is located as long as they have the expertise and they're able to deliver the service effectively. Because when we first started offering consulting services, I can't tell you how many times we would have a kickoff meeting and the clients would ask us when we were going to come on site to start the project. And when we told them, well, we don't need to come on site, we can do all the work remotely, they were a little bit skeptical. A, because they weren't sure the work was going to get done. How do they know the consultant is actually charging for the appropriate amount of hours, given that we can't see them in the office, we don't know what they're doing. But the other thing was just this idea that we're not going to see you and feel you and touch you and welcome you in the morning with a cup of coffee. And they were a little uncomfortable with that. But over the last 10, 15 years in particular, we found that more and more people are comfortable with the idea that we don't need to be on site. It's a way for us to do remote service delivery because the internet enables remote service delivery. And it avoids needless costs and time because the consultants don't have to fly, stay in a hotel, eat meals on the road. The client doesn't have to pay for that. The consultants get to work from home and be with their families in the evening. It's a win-win-win. And from our standpoint, we trust our consultants to provide high-quality, timely expertise. We're not worried about what they're doing during the day because at the end of the month, we collect their billings. And those billings are an objective measure of performance. If they're not doing their job, it's going to become quite clear quite quickly. And of course, if they're not doing their work, clients are going to be calling us saying, hey, how come this isn't delivered? How come I don't have this project completed yet? because there are milestones and timelines that have to be met, it's pretty obvious when a consultant is not pulling their weight. But we also incorporated weekly meetings, of course, online meetings, that provide some level of socialization among the teams and collaboration on projects where we can share ideas and offer input to help each other. Now, our experience with the 4-day work week is a little bit different. We're not there yet, to be honest. It's a work in progress for us. We're trying not to book software presentations or meetings on Fridays. That's sort of our first step. So if we're going to be doing demos or presentations or meetings that are external, we try to schedule those Monday to Thursday. This gives us 1 day a week to take care of administrative duties. But what's happened is I typically have a 6-day work week, so I'm trying to get that down to a 5-day work week, and I'm having some success with that. But because I travel for business, it complicates matters for me because you end up working weekends, either because you're attending a conference that goes over a weekend, or I've got a project deadline that requires me to do some work on Saturday just to make sure it's done on time, whatever the case may be. But again, the internet enables remote access from anywhere. So if I wanted to take off for the weekend and go to a friend's cottage in the summer, I could still access information from the office on my notebook computer at the cottage. Now, again, this blurring between personal and professional can be tricky to manage, especially if you have a spouse and family. So I don't recommend it. I'm not suggesting it. I'm just saying that if it's necessary, it enables us to still enjoy personal aspects of our lives, socializing with friends and family, but still being able to sneak away for an hour if I need to take care of something. Because the problem in a service-based business like ours is that people expect us to be available for questions anytime. So I don't know if we'll ever be able to actually reduce the number of hours unless we hire more staff or try to be more efficient. But in our case, reducing from 40 to 32 hours just isn't realistic in our business, because not only do we have expectations of the business partners here in North America that we serve, but our clients are in different time zones because they're located all around the world. So we may have to stay up late or get up early to do a meeting with our clients when it's necessary. And that's just never going to change. That's just the global village in operation because we're dealing with global clients and customers. Now, when we talk about hybrid versus the 4-day work week, let's be clear that they are not mutually exclusive concepts. Hybrid work can actually complement the 4-day work concept because, as I just mentioned, I could be remote and get away for some personal time, but then still connect hybrid work model-wise to the office. And this allows us to combine personal activities on a workday. So for example, if I want to go grocery shopping on a Thursday morning and avoid the crowds on Saturdays, I can do that. That allows me to be more efficient doing the personal task that I need to take care of, but it also allows me to blend a little bit of personal and professional on the same day. And digital assets help us save time as well. We're big proponents of developing video content that can reduce the reliance on live demos to answer pre-sales questions. Because when it comes to particular solutions, we get the same questions over and over again. So while we do have templated answers available and a knowledge base to answer technical support questions that come up from time to time, videos have become a very popular way for people to get information quickly and easily in a form that they can consume at their leisure when they're available. And that avoids scheduling conflicts and this need to try to coordinate multiple people for one meeting. Also, online marketing collateral can reduce requests for product information. And we hope that you avail yourself of some of that today because we've made marketing collateral available to you either through links to the development partners' websites or posted throughout the metaverse. But because we're a service-based business, we also encourage interaction with business partners so that we get a better understanding of what's happening in the market and we're available to assist them with their opportunities. It's a bit like the advent of voicemail. When voicemail first came out, it was a great way to avoid endless phone calls where you could leave a message for the person you wanted to speak with. And if they couldn't get in touch with you physically, they could leave a voicemail in response to your question. The problem, of course, is that when people just said, hey, it's so-and-so, please call me, that's not a very effective use of voicemail, because then you had to actually get a hold of them and interrupt their day in order to find out what is your question so that I can answer it. Email has removed a lot of that hassle. But from a customer service perspective, voicemail is a terrible technology tool. When you're desperate to speak to a live person and you go through an endless menu of options, it's extremely frustrating. And that's not going to help anyone. So we're very careful not to remove that personal, high-touch service availability, because that's so critical to our service levels for the business partners and customers that we serve. So how about you? What will you do to take these principles and collaboratively consider your options to achieve a better work-life balance for everyone involved? We hope that you've got some concepts now that you can take back to your offices and use them effectively in your organizations. Thanks very much.
Thank you for the presentation, Robert, and thank you for Rejuvenate 2022. We all thought it was great. We will now run through how our Orchid modules, Notes, Document Management Link, Extender, Remote Action Service, Workflow Anywhere, Process Scheduler, Report Runner, and EFT Processing all facilitate the hybrid work environment for Sage 300 users. First of all, let's have a look at Notes. Should you consider using Notes for your hybrid work environment? Do your staff regularly refer to information outside Sage 300, such as post-it notes and other documentation normally kept in the office to help them with their tasks? Are your efforts to increase remote collaboration being stifled by having key information held in ways that don't facilitate sharing of knowledge? And would you like to have relevant and contextual alerts, procedural instructions, or other information presented where and when it's needed, flexible enough to include images and hyperlinks, and all stored and managed within Sage 300, accessible by all, anywhere and any time? Well, if so, Notes may be the way to go. And here what we're seeing is the order entry screen, and this could be any screen within Sage 300 or third-party screen developed within the Sage SDK. And what you're seeing on the right-hand side are notes pertaining to the information on the left, all customized for a specific user or group of users' requirements. Here we're looking at customer number 1200, Mr. Ronald Black, and we're sitting on the first line on the grid, and we're having a look at a fluorescent desk lamp. On the right-hand side, we're seeing instructions for this screen. So if you need to provide remote workers with instructions as to how they should be using the system, you could be utilizing Notes for this customized online help and instructions for the system. Next down, we have an extender generated note for this particular customer, Mr. Ronald Black, around his credit limit. We've then got notes for a combination of Mr. Ronald Black and the fluorescent desk lamp, specifically relating to this combination of information. And so if we were to move one down on the grid, we may then be looking at additional or different information. We're looking here on the right-hand side at a link to this particular item, the desk lamp. So once again, if we went down in the grid, it would then show different links along with a picture of this particular item. Moving on now to Document Management Link, which provides easy access to documents from within your Sage 300 screens It works very similarly to Notes, as you'll see once I show it to you in action. But should you consider it for your hybrid work environment? Do your employees need to remotely file, locate, and refer to various documents? They could be purchase orders, invoices, contracts, etc. when processing transactions in Sage 300 or answering customer queries? Are your aspirations to support staff mobility, remote working, or multiple office locations being held back by a reliance on physical documents? And does the prospect of a paperless or no office with seamless integration between Sage 300 and your document management or file sharing systems sound appealing? Well, as I just mentioned, the document management link works fairly similarly to Notes in as far as on the right-hand side you'll get a window showing different boxes of documents relating to the data that you're looking at. Now, those documents could be shared within or sitting within SharePoint on a cloud service like Dropbox, Google Drive, or OneDrive, or could be sitting internally within your file management system on a file server, on a local file server. In this case, we're looking at an AP invoice. We're looking at vendor number 1200, Chloride Systems, and invoice 8899. On the right-hand side, we're seeing documents relating at the top, relating specifically to this invoice, number 8899, in this case an email and the invoice itself. We're then seeing all invoices for Chloride Systems, and at the bottom we're seeing all contract related documentation for Chloride Systems. Moving on then to tailoring, automation, integration and reporting for the hybrid work environment, we could be looking at all of these modules or just some of these modules to provide the best possible environment for your remote workers. Providing codeless tailoring of Sage 300, customization using the programming language Python, and automation of critical processes to facilitate remote working. Extender is a cost-effective way to configure, customize, and extend Sage 300. Our remote action service allows you to progress and extend a workflow without needing to be logged into Sage 300. Workflow Anywhere provides an extender workflow console on your mobile device. So should you prefer to work with an app on your Apple device or on your Android device, you would then be using Workflow Anywhere. And Process Scheduler to schedule your critical business processes to run automatically and unattended, so you don't need staff on site to do that for you. And lastly, Report Runner to streamline the setup, execution, and distribution of reports to hybrid workers. Looking at Extender first, a cost-effective way to configure, customize, and extend Sage 300. Should you consider that for your hybrid work environment? Well, do you have business or integration requirements that would help remote workers which can't be met by out-of-the-box Sage 300 functionality? Are you worried about adding complexity and risk by introducing these requirements that sit outside your ERP system? And would validations, alerts, custom workflows, screens, and extra data help with your remote workers? What you can do is either work with Extender to create your own customizations, or you can look at the Extender Marketplace up on our website for customizations that have been bundled into apps that you can pick up and use as well. So with this, you can either tailor Sage 300 with Orchid Extender itself, and you can also use a range of apps which have been created by experienced developers, and you can use them as they come, or you can use them as building blocks for further customization of your environment. So these apps are specifically designed for use with the Orchid Extender by Python developers who customize Sage 300. Some of these apps are plug and play, and others will form the base for bespoke customizations that you may wish to do. And here are some examples of those apps. So first of all, let's have a look at some apps which you may want to consider to manage internal workflows. And this may then incorporate end users who are sitting remotely. You may be dealing with the PO requisition and approval process. You might be approving bank entries or GL batch entries. Something now that is more customer focused, you might be controlling order entries and the process around that. You might be dealing with the customer signatures on quotes, the whole order entry approval workflow. You may be working with order confirmations and having those PDFs created, filed away, and emailed to customers automatically. You may want to alert remote staff to new orders coming into the system. And in this case, there's an app sitting up on our website which will allow you to alert them via Microsoft Teams. Or you might be working with invoices, customer invoices. You might want to automatically PDF, file, and email those invoices off to customers without being reliant on physical printers back in the office. Now, with the remote action service, what you can do is progress these workflows remotely. So the remote action service builds on powerful extender workflow capabilities. It allows you to progress a workflow action without being logged into Sage 300. It's secure. There's no open firewall ports to Sage 300. It's easy to use and will work from any internet connected device. And all you need is access to your email and a browser. So looking at the right-hand side, we've got Sage 300 with extenders sitting behind the firewall. And when we need some input from a user who may be out on the road or working remotely, Sage 300 will then send, along with the remote action service, will send an email requesting some form of approval or feedback from the remote user. At the same time, an approval form will be created by the remote action service for the remote user to use. The remote user will then receive this email, click on the link, and then act on that form, either approving or rejecting or moving the workflow forward, might be including additional information and the like. And that information is then periodically retrieved by Sage 300 and is then all updated back into Sage 300. All of these calls from within Sage 300 are going externally, so there's no need to keep a firewall port open. Now, if you'd rather work with an app, then Workflow Anywhere is the way to go. And you can use that once again on the road or in the office. And it's a made-for-mobile version of our extender workflow console. You can install it from the mobile app store, i.e. from Google Play or Apple's mobile store. And you can use it to monitor your current workflow task list, and you can then action them in Sage 300, whether you're in the office or out on the road. So a great way for your hybrid staff to be able to remain involved with these workflows, even if they're not in the office, or even if they're not connected directly through to Sage 300. Moving on now to Process Scheduler, which allows you to run critical recurring processes automatically. Process Scheduler may also be used to help you with your journey to hybrid working. And questions you might want to ask yourself include, do you rely on operations staff to manually kick off recurring processes in the office, i.e. data integrity checks, backups, day-end processing, and ensure that they complete without incident? Is your business being exposed to human error, performance degradation, resource conflicts, and staff downtime due to critical processes being manually executed during working hours? And would you appreciate the peace of mind and convenience of having key processes automatically scheduled and the efficiency of having them run unattended during off-peak hours while still being notified if something goes wrong? Well, if so, then Process Scheduler may be the way to go. And here we have the setup screens for Process Scheduler, where we're setting up a schedule called day end in this case, and we can have these processes run in different Sage 300 companies, and could include checking data integrity, dumping databases, running day ends, doing postings, and the like. And the great thing here is that what you can do is set and forget it. It will then run automatically in the background at the frequency that you've defined. No need to have anybody in the office checking that things have worked correctly. Now, Report Runner allows you to streamline the setup, execution, and distribution of reports, including the distribution of reports to your remote or hybrid workers. And questions you should be asking yourself: do you or your staff regularly spend time setting up, running, and distributing recurring Crystal or Sage 300 financial reports? Is time being wasted, or are poor decisions being made by staff working remotely who struggle to access the reports they need when they need them? And would you like to improve both efficiency and data security by ensuring remote staff can easily launch and access reports that are relevant to their role without being distracted, or by having unauthorized access to those that aren't? Well, if so, here's Report Runner in action at the setup phase. On the left-hand side, we're looking at financial reports. So these are general ledger financial reports, which can be grouped together. And the criteria for running those reports can be stipulated, along with where the reports are to go: being sent off, distributed to remote or hybrid workers, or left on a file share somewhere for them to pick up. On the right-hand side, we've got the same thing, but this time with Crystal reports. They may be the standard Sage 300 Crystal reports, or could be new Crystal reports that you've created, sales analysis reports and the like, which have been created specifically to aid staff, remote staff, in performing their job function. Lastly, let's have a look at our most popular module, EFT Processing. We have over 4,000 sites around the world running EFT processing, and they're running in over 80 countries. The reason why it's running across such a wide range of environments or geographies is that we have over 800 file formats or mapping tables which show or define how Sage 300 data needs to be changed into the specific format required for the bank and account that you're dealing with. And the type of question you should be asking yourself, if you're not already running EFT processing, is do you need to send payments electronically to vendors and employees, collect receipts from customers via direct debit, or send positive pay files to your bank? Would you like to do this remotely? How confident are you that all your cash movements are secure and would stand up to an audit? And would you like to cut costs and improve efficiency through increased automation, enhanced auditability, and reduced exposure to fraud by moving away from paper checks or streamlining positive pay file processing? If this sounds like it may be appropriate, here are some classic screens for EFT processing, and we're looking at some of those file formats I mentioned earlier on, along with the setup of EFT banks, vendors, allowing you to update invoice due dates if you are needing to do that, along with the creation of batches and the ultimate files that will be going off to your banks. And here we have some of those screens sitting using Sage 300's web screens. On our website, we have a number of videos showing these add-ons in action. Be sure to have a look at www.orchid.systems and have a look at the videos of the modules you're interested in. We will now open up for any questions you may have. Please type them into the question box as you are all on mute.
Can you show us how document management link and notes work together? Do you get two windows on the right-hand side? What type of documents can you store in document management link, and how do we get those documents into document management link?
Okay, I think order entry screen is the best one to show to answer those questions. So firstly, regarding notes and document management link, you don't get two alert boxes, one for notes and one for document management link. You get one box with the notes and the document management link options that you've configured. In the alert box, you will have all the notes and document management link options that you've configured showing in the same box, well, in the same big tray. So this is a extender generated total sales for the customer year to date. This is an extender generated note, but it is just a note. So your notes can be sitting beside your documents and your calculated notes, and you define the order in which you display them. Regarding what document types you can save in document management link, as you can see in this box, you can save any document type that you need. A document management link is not storing the document itself. It is storing the path and the filters to apply either to a network folder or to a map drive like OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, or to SharePoint. So the documents are stored in those particular tools, and document management link is just browsing to and filtering and finding the documents that you want to see. So any document type can be stored, and then when you double click to open, it is using the default viewer that you have configured for that file type. So in this case, it is showing us a PDF in Edge because I don't have Adobe loaded on this particular machine. And the third part to the question was, how do we get the documents here? So document management link, you can drag and drop a document into the folder. So if I wanted to drag this particular spreadsheet in, I can just drag and drop it in. You can click add and then browse to find a document, or you can click explore, browse to find a document and add it in. And you can also drag documents in from your Outlook. So it can be either the email MSG file like we see here, or the attachments from the email. Any other questions, Steve?
Yes, the next question relates to Report Runner. And the question is, I think it's Report Runner, do salespeople need to be logged into Sage to see their OE Crystal sales reports?
No, they don't. When you configure Report Runner and Process Scheduler to schedule reports overnight, for example, your choice is when you can scheduling the report. So for example, if I look at the schedule here, this particular schedule, when it's run by a Process Scheduler, will only be saving the report in this directory. So the salespeople would need to know to go to this directory to access the report. They don't have to do it through Sage. If I had ticked this button and put the email address here, then they would be emailed the report. So they would just be able to double click and open it on their email. So again, they don't have to go into Sage. But if you do this as a saved report, so it ends up in either in My Reports or in your saved reports, then you can save public reports in this list or private reports in this list. And if you're using saved reports, then you do need to log into Sage and then access the saved report that way.
Okay, and the last question I have at the moment, so if anybody out there has any further questions, please type them into the question box. But the last question currently is, can I create a workflow on payments which will have additional levels of authority depending on the amount being paid? And can these approvers of these payments all be remote?
Yes, and yes is the answer to that. So let's just open up a company which has some workflow templates. Okay, so first to answer the remote, the question about remote. So when a workflow instance is started, workflow users can progress the workflow instance using the workflow console. This is logging into Sage 300 and accessing the workflow console. So I get to see all the instances that are assigned to me as a user or to me as a member of one of these groups. And from here, I can approve and reject. But if you are going to be a remote user, then you can use Remote Action Service, which the workflow template template would create a one-time link form on AWS and send the approvers an email with a link to that form in. So the approvers can click on their email, click on the link, and then approve or reject. So that's all outside Sage 300. And using Remote Action Service, you don't have to open a port to the internet from your Sage 300 server because the email link is pushed out to the, pushed out by email, and the web form is created by pushing out from Sage 300. So Remote Action Service gives you approvals remotely without logging into Sage 300 and without opening up your firewall. If you are okay opening up your firewall, you can use Workflow Anywhere, the Workflow Anywhere app, which runs on iOS devices, Android devices, and Windows devices. So you can approve or reject by accessing this workflow console via an app. And then the app works via IIS, so you do need to open a port so that the apps can come into Sage and do what you need to do, but you can be remote using that as well. The other part of the question, I think, was, can you have workflow templates which are multi-level? So I'll just look at this AP invoice batch workflow template. So this is approving an AP invoice batch. I think the question was regarding payment batches. This particular template only has one level of accepting and posting, but these steps and the actions within the steps are all configurable. So if you needed a multi-level approval based on the amount, you can definitely use evaluate in the template to see what the amount is. If it's bigger than this, go down this path. If it's bigger than this or less than this, go down the other path. So yes, you can have as many levels as you want in your workflow template based on any factor that you want. It can either be sequential, two-level approval sequentially, or two-level approval in parallel, whichever way that you want to do your workflow template or that you need to do it. And so you can have as many steps as you want and as many actions within each step as you want, all configurable.
Okay, thanks for that, Anne. I don't see any other questions at this stage, so and we are almost out of time, so we might end it there. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you all very much for attending this morning, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Yeah, thanks for attending. Look forward to seeing you in December.